Welcome to the latest episode of TWI Talks ACD. Today's episode is hosted by Oshi and Ranaros. They'll be talking about the latest chapter of The Wandering Inn, chapter 9.23.
GGGGGGG, right? 9 Gs.
Yes, 9 Gs.
Yeah, 9 Gs. Okay, we're going to go over the chapter, some of the initial reactions, what you thought of it. We'll do some proper discussion. We'll keep the recording to about 45 minutes to an hour. After that, I hope you'll stick around. We'll have some after recording discussions, and we'll play some games if you guys are interested in doing some of the activities. So, starting at the top. Open up the Google Docs that is part of the event announcement. If you want a specific question or a topic discussed, put it in there and I will try to get to it. I'm going to weave as much of it as I can, but we might not get to everything, at least in the recording. For those who are new or relatively new, hi, welcome. I see a couple of people that I haven't seen before. It's nice to meet you. Basic rules. Don't talk over each other. If you want something to be spoken out loud, but you don't have a mic or don't wish to speak, ping me, put what you want to say in that message as well, and I will read it out. You need to put that in the ACD reactions and comments channel. And if you just want to speak, you have a mic and you're a big talker just like me, I love you. Please speak. Even if you're not a big talker, please speak. Just ping me and we'll include you. Ranaris is helping me, so if you can't get my attention, make sure you just talk to Ranaris. And he will take over at times to read stuff out and lead the discussion a little bit when my voice gives out. Excuse me. Okay, let's get started. We are going to start off with general impressions, and go ahead and type or ping if you want to speak. And while everybody's typing and putting all their stuff in there, I'll give you guys my general impressions of it. I felt sick to my stomach while watching the stream. Probably not the best way to consume horror chapters, because imagine spending, I think the streams combined were about 12 hours. So something like 12 hours of inching forward with horrific experiences that Geneva goes through in the chapter. I did not feel good afterwards. In fact, for the second stream that ended it, where Pirate wrote most of the chapter, I decided not to be part of the stream itself and just to do other activities and catch up with the stream nearer to the end, which really did help. I got a lot of notes from people that were like, yeah, I need to stop here. I cannot read this chapter. It needs more warnings. This did not help my general, like, trying to focus on what the hell is happening in this chapter. Having said all that, it was a very good horror-based chapter, and Pirate does this very traditionally. I think last year was when they did the Lucifin, and the year before that, I can't remember what they did, but I know they go through where they go through various.
I guess while Oshi is away, I will just read out Edge Dancers, and then folks that want to speak.
Let
I'll
me
let.
just finish this. Sorry, I just had to answer an important message. I apologize for that, but yeah. So we had a lot of strong reaction to this, but I will say Pirate hit the Halloween meter that they always do every year. Congratulations, Pirate! You freaked me out. This was a true horror story, and Pirate tends to do these on a semi-regular basis. I liked it. I did enjoy it. I don't think I will read it again. I'm happy not to read it again. I would rather read about. Okay, this is going to get me lynched a little bit. Maybe that's a controversial word to use, but I'm not a huge fan of Geneva anymore. I was at the beginning because I was hoping she would be a clever character. Instead, she's a principled character, meaning that the core of her personality is not based on doing necessarily the best thing. She just does the right thing. Principal characters drive me utterly insane because oftentimes that principle comes at other people's cost as much as your own cost. This can also put me in conflict with Erin at times when I dislike the way she does things because you're hurting other people with your choices. And you guys can disagree with me when you say this, but if Geneva had, instead of taking the mercenary contract at the start of her adventure, instead gone up and just taken a normal job, made a little money, and then found a way to become, like, set up a medical facility, essentially figure out how to get from where she was to using her skills, rather than insisting that her skills should get her, like, selling her skills, making them more, like, making the fact that she is medically trained super important when she never completed her training in the first place. And she acknowledges that from the start. I understand why her principals demanded that she put her skills to the best possible use. That was not the best decision, that was the principal decision. And she continually makes principled decisions. And each principled decision puts her less and less in the driver's seat to her own life. And I hate her for it. I hate her for the choices that she made. I hate her for choosing to not help the best way that she could by maybe she couldn't have brought modern medicine to the world, but maybe she could have brought some medicine to a city, found people who are willing to help her bring modern medicine to the world instead. There are other ways to do what she did. And people will react and say, it's hindsight. No, it's not hindsight. It's a deliberate choice that Geneva made. The fact that she acknowledges it now is fine. There are lots of mitigating circumstances. I'm sure hundreds of arguments could come up with, but I still fault her for this. That's it. Um, I will, like, who wants to speak now? I think a bunch of people can ask that. You wanna bring in Edge Dancer's conversation, Ranners?
Yeah, I'll read it out.
Thank you.
Edge Dancer says, "Do we think the 9Gs, how many Genevas survived? They're just random fun stuff. Overall, very cool chapter, but I felt like some of it could use a clarity editing pass. I know it was supposed to be confusing, but it still felt like some of it was overly confusing. Wonder if Redemption is going to do anything else. Geneva Lovers Unite. I loved how in almost every iteration of Geneva, she kept bringing up stuff that pissed the minds off. She had to be lobotomized by some of the most advanced psionics in the world to stop pissing authority figures off. Um, yeah, Edge Dancer, I do think like some of that like confusion and over it being like overly confusing was very intentional, especially given like the um conditions that were removed by the end of the chapter. I think the writing was trying to like showcase that like something's very wrong. And I think that was like the whole it was just like this it wasn't even gradual. I mean it was just a they were diving and it was terrifying. So Blob, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, so obviously, I think like most people, I loved this chapter. I am obviously slightly biased because Geneva is my favorite character and still is, and nothing Oshie can say will change my mind on that. But yeah, I think this chapter was the best chapter in the entire story so far. I just like the horror, the tension, the resolution was all amazing. The character of Geneva just staying like having that core of her that just stayed true was really really good. I really enjoyed that. The second mind going all out and like corrupting the other minds and having all of its plans uh, work out at least a little bit, and then getting the whole thing nuked by the rest of the world was amazing. Okasha got a little bit of redemption, and hopefully we'll see more of her, which was also great because I was really hoping for Okasha to get a return. Yeah, Niers did like pretty competent stuff. Having a honor detector rather than a truth detector, just that was such a good piece of writing there. What else did I love about this chapter? Oh, I mean, I do like obviously like horror in general, especially the way Pirate writes it. I remember early on really liking the Winter Solstice chapter, and that was my favorite chapter for a while. So if we want to say why Oshi is wrong, having a principal character I think is good for that character interactions. Having her refuse to waver on things leads to great moments, like when we saw in this chapter where she kept even through being mind wiped over and over and over again, she still kept to her principles, and I thought that was just really nice to read. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, that's why you're wrong, Oshi.
I hate paladins. Moving on. We have actually just before I move on to Mr. Europe and Edgeron, there was a comment that from Kel that reminded me of something. Hey Kel, you want to speak or no? What?
What?
Tell us
What did I
about the
say?
change. Tell the people who have no clue what happened. The changes in the editing that the editing made.
I don't remember.
You said that the editing made the chapter better. What changed between the end of the
Was
stream
I
and
watched
the
the
posting?
streams and then I read the edited chapter and it was a lot better.
Yeah,
wasn't
so
it
what was better about it?
wasn't it the fact that
That's Mr. Europe for
Nears
anybody
was
who doesn't know who
yeah,
that
sorry.
is.
Wasn't it the fact that Nears was sitting outside for most of it, and then that was changed to him going in and being more active and cool?
Yes, there was a lot of feedback about Niers basically being pretty useless. And that got changed up quite a bit. He was much more aggressive, which kind of suits him. Um, that was actually a lot of fun. There was some clarification about the um when Redemption yelled to the world basically that they had broken the wall and Actilio Salash's madness was running through, that there was clarification in there about who he was talking to with which pieces, and that they actually reacted and sat up and took notice. We didn't just get an "oh, we're doing bad stuff" and immediate nukes dropped. Like, it was still pretty fast, but they had to actually do stuff to figure out where they were and all that.
The ending changes a lot too, right? Because at the end, Niers goes in and uses his really powerful tier 7 spell to save a bunch of people. Like, that was nice. Let's be real. Like, knowing that he's willing to go in to do all that to save people, that made him more of, like, a cool guy than just
Well, on
late.
that one, I think he was Lynette's
What?
gonna be mad, but I think a lot of that was because Aaron asked him to find Geneva,
Ooh.
and if he had to say, "I found her, but I lost her," that was not gonna look so good for his chances if he ever gets to see her in person again.
Oh my god, I completely forgot that dimension of Niers' character being like saving Geneva because was he talking to Aaron in that little bit of a section where he's like, I'm sorry I'm late?
I think, mentally, yes, it could have been her, it could have been Geneva herself, because he would know, having met the minds before, not these particular ones and all, that they were going to be getting up to shenanigans and fucking with her head. So I think it was a little bit of both. Like, if he had not delayed, if he had not fucked up, he could have been there and saved her before before he even needed to save her. He could have been there to just pick her up. And he could have saved at least her from those problems, if not all the other shit that went down.
Um, Thank you for stepping up and speaking about that, Kel. I appreciate you. It's nice to hear different voices occasionally. Mr. Europe, you're up.
Yeah, I love this chapter. It was great. I especially like Geneva's chapters in general, even though sometimes they're very hard to reread. Especially because she's such a principled character, and paladins are the best. No, but
Fuck you
seriously,
all. Fuck you all. Fuck you all.
seriously, I personally love reading very principled characters, and especially when their principles make them do suboptimal choices. It's really compelling for me to read. I always love those things, those stories. Um, I always like these horror chapters that Pirate does, and this in particular was really good, and it was a very good conclusion to a long running storyline and setting up for future Geneva stuff, which has been a long time coming. Um, yeah, I especially liked when we saw, like, when we went back and saw what actually happened in certain scenes with Geneva and how she kept just bothering the minds over and over. And with in response to what Edge Dancer said about being lobotomized by advanced psionics and stuff just to get her to stop bothering people, and it didn't work. Clearly, the minds are just not very good at this because both Ryoka and Kara just had to go to Terandria to start befriending authority instead of bothering them all the time. So, Terandria's passive mind control effect is clearly stronger than any telepath's.
Okay.
Oh shit! Sorry. Just last. Sorry.
Go
Just
ahead.
as a last thing, the one thing that I'm really bothered about is the fact that Okasha is back. I'm not a fan of hers. I hate her. She's a monster. But the fact is now she's having her little redemption arc, and I am on the side that um, I don't want Geneva to be healed, but now that means that Okasha is going to be her her partner, which I don't like either. So
Well,
I'm
that
very conflicted about the whole thing. And yes, I know Pirate is going to write a very good redemption thing and
no, Mr. Europe. I
yada
wasn't gonna
yada
say that.
yada.
Hang on.
No, but someone's going to say that.
Someone's gonna say that, but I was gonna say, considering the level ups that she gained at the end of the chapter, she may not need any help moving around anymore.
Yeah, but I don't like that either. I want her to. I wanted her. Like, I think the fact that she has a sulfate in her to get her, the only way to get her to move. I really like
We'll
that
talk about.
fact
Okay,
about her
hang on.
character.
Keep Akasha for later. We're definitely gonna
Yeah,
talk about her. I think I'll do topics for this one just because there's just too many individuals. Okay, Edgeron, you had one, and then Agent Fog, you'll be right after. Okay.
Yes. The last chapter I said Geneva chapters are always depressing and kind of hard to read because it's often just suffer porn. That didn't change this chapter. Geneva was never one of my favorite characters. At least she's my least favorite character. That, I don't know, could maybe change now that she is like a mix of Charles Xavier and Dr. House. But what I really, really liked about this chapter was the answers we got about the Flash that was, or some hints what the Flash actually is that was really interesting. Even more reasons for Trey to burn the whole place down. I really enjoyed that. The horror aspects were quite uncomfortable, to be honest. It didn't make my day really better. Let's say it like this. I still think that it's overall was a better Doctor story than what we got before. And yeah, let's see where we go from there. Hello?
I
Oh.
understand. Now it's Agent Fog's turn. What's up?
Hi. So again, giving a character such huge weakness is risky, obviously, no? And you gotta give props to Pirate for sticking to it for this long. So again, I like Geneva. I like each character. I like the class most of all. Okay. Regarding the chapter, I liked it. I think it was a suitable end to the storyline. One thing that really grinds my gear is that we have like the old things ends with the cliche, the bad guy gives the monologue and then takes a
Yeah.
long time to kill the main character. Okay, so again, I'm a bit disappointed that it ended a bit. I mean, again, the part about Geneva. I love the part about the mad slapping brain going
Hang on, go back. What were you
primordial.
disappointed? Hang on, go back. What were you disappointed at the end about? There wasn't a monologue, or there was a
There
monologue?
was the yes, the slave in Geneva that starts speaking, explaining what have they done, no, and
Oh,
everything.
okay,
It's a bit again, it's a bit
okay.
disappointing, but
That's
I
that's
get it.
fair. It can be. I mean, Pirate did hit all of the horror movie tropes a little bit. Even if they did it in the pirate way, it was still like despair, darkness, inevitable death. After the fight, there's like the helicopters and the police come and save you. Like all that shit was there. Like it was a good horror story. Um. Anyway, thank you, Agent Fog. I'm gonna let Ranaris read through some of the comments after that. I will respond to Liquid Ender's one where he says, "I'm the one who put the editing thing into the doc, not Kel. I didn't notice the editing thing. I saw Kel make a comment in the ACD live chat, and I know for a fact that Kel some gives like bits and pieces of feedback during the stream spoilers. So I thought let her speak. I apologize. If you wanted to still talk about it, Liquid Ender, would you like to at this point?
Nah, I'm fine. You went over some of the parts.
Yeah, but you have your own opinions, right? Like when you were
Yeah.
giving feedback, and I know you give feedback during the stream. I know you're a big stream follower. What
Yeah,
was
it's
the things that you noticed that hit you the most when you were reading the revised chapter after the editing part?
I no longer felt like Niers would have believed Selphid Geneva if she had been presented to him. I no longer felt like the minds could have gotten away with their little switcheroo.
Did you think it made sense that they even tried it though?
Yeah, kind of. They're arrogant, very arrogant, and they don't think much of other species, so I could see them trying it. But now I don't. Now I just know that it had 0% of chance of working.
Okay. Fair. Okay, Neuronorous, take it away.
Agent Fog says Niers is a bit of a simp. I think this is related to the comment that Aaron asked Niers to find Geneva. I guess on that point, just to respond, I know Kyler think was the one who linked it in one of the chats, main channel chats yesterday. But there was actually a point where Nears is asked by, the Freylings at Paith on the coast and the United Nations company to rescue Geneva as well, and he basically commits at that point to rescuing her. So, I don't know that it's purely because of him, like basically Aaron asking him. He basically committed to doing it beforehand. I think maybe like Aaron was like, I think this is maybe just a way of him like repaying. He felt like he owed Aaron a favor, and so he just wanted. He feels like this is something that he can use for that. Um, and Agent Fogg says, "I was speaking in general, not about Geneva." Yeah, I mean that's fair. He is. I think for this specific example, there's more layered motivations there. Calera says there's one line where Nears says Aaron asked him to find Geneva, but we never saw her asked. It also demonstrates that he doesn't needlessly throw away the lives of his people. He cares about. We know he cares because he has skill to minimize deaths. However, it's not fair much. Yep. And I guess my thoughts on the chapter overall is, the Wandering in horror story returns, and I don't. It's like I'll read these chapters once, but I don't ever see myself reading them again. Unless maybe there's like and I felt like there were some good twists, and we got a lot of interesting build up for the future. But I will say, this is kind of sort of like the Selfid Minds arc finally done, and I mean that's been built up since like volume 3, like, or ever since Geneva really first entered the story, and like where she entered the story in like that string of consecutive chapters. I mean, because she got injured and Akasha like is helping her. I mean, that was when that story really got started, and so it's finally over. And I'm happy for it because I think Geneva could be an interesting character going forward. Although I do kind of understand Oshi's frustration with like the just going above and beyond like just any what reasonable person would do, and I guess like I can understand being frustrated by that. I guess that's how you ultimately be. I guess because she stood by those principles, she may be able to do some things that other characters, wouldn't be able to do because they kind of had to take the just the more reasonable route. But that comes with trade-offs as well. So I think maybe she can be in a position to hopefully do something good with it. I mean, that's what she wants to do, but it's like, is she finally going to be in a position to where she can actually start doing some good? And maybe all of this, in the end, there'd be at least more of a question of like, okay, was this worth it? Because Oshi is right. There's a lot of people that paid a price for, her take this principled stand. So it'll be interesting to see.
I think that wraps up general impressions pretty well. We also covered a topic unintentionally, but we did it. Yay! That was, how much of the recording is that? Let me just double check. Where's the recording? So that's about 30 minutes. So we have roughly half an hour left. So I'm going to pull a couple of questions. It's not going to be everything. And then we'll go back. Please stick around. We'll keep going with the questions. We'll keep having a discussion. It just will not have the joie de vivre. No, what the fuck am I saying? Why am I going French? It just won't be weird recording people like putting a mic in front of you anymore. So biggest question I think we'll cover is actually I'm gonna combine these questions together. So we had a couple of questions all about Akasha. And what I'm going to do is post both the questions, and I'll talk about my own version of what it is. So this will just be about Akasha herself, since there's so much interest in 3 questions. Sorry, there was a lot of questions about her. Okay, so here's the couple of questions from the document. Akasha was mentioned to have a red class. Did it change back, just like Genevas? How do you feel about Akasha being back? Will Akasha stay in Geneva Prime, or will Geneva Prime be healed very soon? And as a general question to everybody, what is your impression of how Pirate tends to take what is supposedly irredeemable characters? We're talking about Tyrion. We're talking about even what's the runner Pursuer, the goblins, Ascrush, and transforms them into, if not redeemed characters, then those we can sympathize with on a level that allows us to treat them in a humane way, in a human way, and makes it hard for us to just see them as blocks of evil. Okay. We're going to. I'm going to let that come up. More than a few people. Okay. All right. Let me look through the live things. Maybe I can pick somebody out. Hey, Asteria. Since you're here, you want to talk about Akasha?
Say about her.
What did you think of how she was represented in this chapter? And do you think she's going to experience the kind of redemptive arc that Pirate tends to put what we think of as villains through?
Um, I think that it was interesting that we got kind of the like everybody. I think the general reaction of the readers was like, "Good, she should be punished," right? When she was removed from Geneva way back when, but to kind of see what she's been going through and how she's basically begging for any kind of relief from her punishment was interesting and did induce a like ability to personally for me a bit of sympathy. I mean, she's essentially undergoing torture. Does it excuse or even rectify like what she did to Geneva? Absolutely not. But there's a difference between punishment and torture. Going forward, I kind of hope she doesn't necessarily get a redemption arc. I would appreciate Pirate continuing to kind of treat her as a complicated character because she is, right? To kind of go from basically dead host, right, to a living, breathing person who is essentially an invalid without your assistance, right? I think there is like some understanding from the reader there about a loss of like, you know, she lost her mind a little bit, and it's like, well, that kind of makes sense. Still doesn't excuse what you did, but it makes sense. And then for her to be undergoing that torture in the jar, um, but no, I don't think she's on a redemption arc. It would be interesting to see her story continue. I don't know how that's going to play out though, right? Because like the big thing is like cephalids shouldn't, you know, be involved in living hosts, but Geneva can't function without her. But now that secret's blown wide open. So I don't know. Like a lot of people were speculating that Geneva's going to just be killed along with Okasha because of their circumstance, but maybe they'll get an exception and learn how to work together. I'm curious to see where that goes.
Let's think about things in like. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna let some. I have some responses to this, but mine is long ranty, so which surprise, surprise. I'm gonna let people talk. Ranners, can you lead through the people who need to speak? I'm just gonna step away and try to organize my thoughts in a way that isn't going to be a rant.
Sure. Bob, your first up.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm going to be in the minority here, but I am happy that Okasha is back. Um, I definitely disagree with Asteria saying, "Oh, I hope Okasha should be punished and she deserves to have horrible things happen to her for what she did." Um, I'm just not a believer in punishment for actions, and I think redemption is a good thing. Okasha seemed genuinely remorseful for what she did, willing to change, and that's really what matters to me. Um, so as long as Geneva forgives her, and Okasha has changed and is now looking to improve herself and not make the same mistakes in the past, then yeah, I think this will be a good redemption arc, and I see no issues with it. There was a bit of mention about how pirate doesn't always redeems the irredeemable, but that isn't the case. There have been a bunch of irredeemable characters that just died in this very chapter, like the mines. They were irredeemable. They got killed. Like Tremborag was irredeemable. He got killed. The slavers in the Piskies chapter, they got killed. Like that's what happens to the truly irredeemable characters. It's just that I think some people have a little bit more black and white view on morality and like, oh yeah, no, Akasha is irredeemable because she made a mistake one time, and therefore deserves to be put in a sensory deprivation chamber for 3 months.
Yep. Thank you, Bob. Great Worm Omeprazole. I did not pronounce that right. But Great Worm, you're up.
Oh, it's omeprazole. It's a little joke. Anyway, point is, so first off, on Okasha,
We're
there
not
is a
passing that by. What's the joke?
all
Omeprazole?
right. Yeah, omeprazole is an anti-acid. It's an anti-acid reflux pill. All
Oh,
worm names to me sound like pharmaceutical drug names, and worms have an acid attack. That's the joke.
okay.
So anyway, first up, Okasha. We have a third option. We don't need to condemn her to indefinite solitary confinement and sensory deprivation, torture, or give her unfettered access to her past victim, although said victim will be able to fight back given Geneva has all these really powerful anti-telepathy, anti-mind control style skills. The point here is we can just, well, we being the narrative, I guess, can just give her a corpse to inhabit so she can earn her redemption without having to be literally inside Geneva or having to be tortured. And then on the redemption question, a lot of our worst bad guys, even the ones that haven't just gotten killed off, aren't really being redeemed. They might be, they've been, I guess, humanized, personized, I guess, because we've got, Drakes and Knowles and stuff, but redemption for me is, it's more than just having a sympathetic viewpoint or becoming an object of pity to a degree. Redemption is about recognizing the wrong that you've done, being like, well, that was wrong, and then working to do the right thing. Ilvris is a great example to me of a redeemed character. He wasn't like cartoonish, mustache-twirling evil, but he was a huge jerk, and through effort, became a pretty solidly decent person. And then on the other hand, we have our big nasties like Azkarash, the main one. He's still alive-ish. Well, he's kind of sort of undead. He's existing within the narrative, let's put it that way. And he's had his funny dad moments, and he's not actively at this moment trying to kill all the living or, whatever his latest fiendishly clever plan is. But he's not really doing anything, like, good. I guess he's being a somewhat less horrible parent to his undead creations, but he still kind of sucks at that, too. When it comes to whether a character is redeemable or not, it's whether they choose to do the right thing, whether they put in the effort. And a lot of times, characters need an outside perspective to recognize that what they're doing is wrong. Like Ilvris. He had Aaron basically pester him into being less of a jerk, and it worked out great for everyone involved. But the point is, anyone, Okasha, Azkarash, can, with the right influence and the right decisions, redeem themselves.
Okay. I'm gonna mix things up and go with Agent Fog first, and then Mr. Europe, then Edgeron.
Hey.
Okay, so again, I totally agree with Great Worm. So again, I also think that again, Okasha didn't really do anything to redeem herself so far. But it's not. She was stuck in a box, so it's really not that surprising. Again, we'll see. And regarding to Garage, again, he's been playing like shoots and ladder with his morality, so it's really not clear what is his brain, how his brain works.
Mr. Europe?
Yeah, I touched on this earlier, but for me, I really like the fact that Geneva is has this thing with that she's not able to move without a selfhood, and the problem now is that I really don't like the fact that Okasha is back inside her uh, after uh, they. I mean, basically, to put it in very basic terms, like Okasha tried to sexually assault Geneva, and that's why they split up. It's You can talk about how like redemption is good, like good or bad, or how Pirate does it, and all these different things. But the fact that they are together in one body is very icky, and that is a specific problem for me because right now Okasha is the only selfid that is, ironically enough, trustworthy enough for Geneva to have piloting her body. So yeah, I'm very conflicted on this. On the other hand, I don't actually think that Okasha should just be like just straight up killed, and there's nothing you can do about it. I think that's a perfectly valid way for the story to go. Like, just oh well, tough shit. She dies. Uh, but and I don't think that like having her tortured or whatever is the best option. I don't think redemption is impossible, but
Mr. Europe? Well,
yeah,
what
I
did you
just
think? Do you think that she
no,
also received a similar situation with Geneva having her red, quote unquote, red classes taken away? Did she also get some kind of redemptive moment? And was this enough for you to see her getting that kind of thing?
I think this is the like putting aside the fact that Okasha is in Geneva's body, and I don't like that. Putting that aside, I think this is enough for Okasha's redemption to start, but I do not believe that that her red class should go away with just this. This would be the start of a of like Okasha becoming better, but I feel like for her to the reason why Okasha would have a red class would be because she abused her power to hurt a friend. She abused, like, she went back on her word. She described her, like, commitment to not take over a living person's body. She described that in the same terms as Geneva's commitment not to do harm. I think that back when they first joined. I think that this is like could be a start to it, but we have not. Akasha has not actually dealt with it. For her to have lost her red class from just this, it's kind of like what you call it. It's kind of like that stupid TV soap opera thing where someone does a bunch of dumb like bad stuff to each other, and then they all make it up in a grand romantic gesture or whatever.
Oh,
It's
so you're
dumb.
saying
It's
so you're saying
im-
this saving her from near death is shouldn't be rewarded with a new class thing. It should be something that she dedicates herself to. If she does the kind
like
of
this is
here's
yeah.
my
That just yeah. Sorry,
here's
you
my
go.
clarification for this. The way I'm questioning this for everybody also to think about. Do you think Okasha could make a vow similar to the way um, that Geneva has done and make that vow real in the way she acts, in the way she refuses to use her class, and because of that, gain a redemptive skill? Doesn't necessarily mean she's redeemed, but perhaps the vow, just like with the priest who made the blood. Sorry, not the priest. Nawaz Sharif and how she made the choice to never make weapons again and was given a class. Like, do you think that's a possibility for her rather than maybe the system deciding she's suffered enough? More, she makes an active choice in her existence, and the system responds by giving her a chance to prove herself.
That would be much better. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like in this, to put it in like another metaphor, this would be her like when the florist girl loses some ranks of horror, like and goes back from that. This would be. I feel like Okasha could like go back a bit from the red class, like lose a bit of it or something, but I don't think that this alone should remove it from her. She needs to do something like you said, and something like that, more of a character's thing for her to actually lose her red class and be, because that's kind of a system and numbers indication of redemption. And I don't think this is enough. I think this is a step, but I don't think that she should just, oh yeah, now I saved her before I indeed like I took her over. Now I saved her, therefore it's karmically neutral. That's not how this should work.
Okay, we're gonna move forward to Ed. Go on.
Yes. First, I think that Okasha deserves a second chance. What they did is was pretty messed up, but I honestly think that there is remorse there, and there will be a redemption. I'm pretty sure of it. Maybe we get finally a character like Everest who actually gets a redemption and is not just like humanized. They were a bit humanized because we saw them tortured, and this always gives somebody an pity for the character and to the overall redemption what Pirate is doing. Um, None of the other characters have really been redeeming themselves. Uh,
Hey, Ed.
they were just, huh?
Okay, so let me ask you this then. Everyone's redeeming themselves, all that. We've talked a lot about it, but we haven't really focused on the third question either. Do you think Geneva is going to heal herself, or that someone's going to heal her now soon? Geneva Prime, not Geneva
Yeah.
Dillahan or whatever the hell the other ones that we. I don't even know what names we came up with. That was one of the questions I was going to add at the end. But for now, do you think
Uh,
that the situation will change so she no longer needs Akasha and she no longer needs anyone?
I
Do
don't
you think
think
she'll heal
so.
herself?
I don't think so because I even think that at some point it's a little bit of a crack theory of mine that a little bit of at some point they are gonna merge like 100% and become like one being.
You mean all the
Um,
Genevas or Geneva and
no,
Akasha?
just Geneva and Akasha.
Ooh, ew. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, because that's that's something that makes Geneva like it's a whole thing. I think that she can only move around with the self within her, and it's now a deep part of her character, and to like just make her heal herself and be her own person would take a lot of
Well, let me ask you this: the
oomph out
the
of her character, I would
the
say.
system gives you classes for just about anything. Why has she never gotten a class that's like bonded pair or something like that with um with Akasha or any other Selfid? Why has she never gotten something that allows her to like work in conjunction with one of the Selfids? She's
Because
gotten
until
classes
now,
that lead towards slavery or enslavement or a lot of other really terrible things. She's never gotten
be-
anything that's symbiotic in nature.
because until now she really didn't had a real partner. All self within her had like their own thing going on and like tried to manipulate her or try to
Where she
she never
manipulated them the way she did with Akasha on the first part, right?
yeah she never had a real partner. And maybe this is something that can change now with a redeemed Akasha, that they truly start working together and not just like, yeah, I'm using you for walking around and I'm using you for something else. So maybe now they can develop some skills that they where they merge skills together on something like this.
So I'm gonna dig into a lot of these responses that have come up in response to like you guys' comments and stuff. So we're gonna start with Sivseer. Sivseer says Okasha should go in the blender. I do find the jar treatment very, very morbidly ironic, considering how Okasha put Geneva in a mental box as a inner friend, quote unquote, that he's using in the class. Bailey asked a question which he will put on the document, but Coldbringer, in response to Sivseer, says, I'm inclined to give Okasha a pass. One pass. Geneva abused the hell out of her Sylphid prior to Akasha simply snapping under the pressure. See how things work out from here on out, and see how it goes, IMO. However, by now, Geneva might be capable of curing her own paralysis, which would make the question moot. And I believe Agent Fogg patted Coldbringer on the head with a reaction on that one. A shame that Geneva couldn't get a hold of the potions of regeneration that were inside the Gathering Citadel. In response to Coldbringer's comment, Agent Fogg says, completely agree. Geneva might have died from overwork if it wasn't for Akasha. Sivseer says, comments again, I mean, Frailing healthcare is pretty strong. They got a cancer cure and, more importantly, medically trained necromancers. It should be easy for Niers to get her fixed up. Coldbringer, in response to Agent Fogg, says, without Akasha, Geneva would be just as dead, regardless. But you are correct in pointing that out. Kel, likely in response to Geneva healing herself, says, green skill, physician, heal thyself. Kel, you are funny and not funny at the same time. Kylera goes, Geneva, Geneval, and the clones. I don't know. I think that's the different ways to name Geneva. We'll get to it at the end. Agent Fogg says with all these clones, quote unquote, it would be disappointing if she didn't cure herself. But it's also true that she doesn't need to. She can just live by proxy. Mr. Europe says, the Geneva Convention is the best name I've heard people throw around for the Genevas. Yo, that actually is a really good name. We gotta do a poll at some point. Bailey says, why she hasn't gotten a symbiotic class. The system takes how the person thinks about things into consideration, which is why Aaron doesn't get chess classes. I'm not finding the connection. Bailey, could you did you have a mic? Do you want to speak, or would you prefer to type? If you can type, could you clarify specifically what you mean, what the connection is? Do you think Geneva's not thinking about partnership with the Selfids, and she's always thinking about either being in control or losing control? Is it like she doesn't think of it as a possibility? Whatever that is, give us type the response, and I'll read it in a little bit. Colbringer pings me and says Geneva's beta body looks like a rather convenient organ donor for Geneva Alpha. And Geneva Alpha now has greater organ transplantation or whatever. So yeah, that is absolutely true. Geneva could find, like, I don't know, nerves in other parts of the body and try to transplant them to repair the nerve damage she suffered on her spine. Kylera says Okasha isn't completely evil. She risked her own life when she decided to initially save Geneva. She did something terrible months later, but she has shown an ability to be selfless. I don't know that the relationship can ever be repaired, or if it should be. That's that's a hard thing. Like, the actions taken don't necessarily reflect, like, okay. I don't know if you want to speak, Kylera, to this or not, but do you think the action is more important than the intent, or the intent is more important than the action? Because as we know, the incredible cliche, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So do you think Akasha's intentions should matter more than the actions she took?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I think she intended to do both things both times. She knew exactly what she was doing. Uh, she's capable of doing good things and also really terrible things. I don't know that you can have a great relationship with somebody and throw it out in a weekend, and that's kind of what she did. I think in some ways it was justified. It's like living with a roommate but never getting to choose anything and having your life completely controlled. A lot of people will snap. You see that in caretaking careers. I don't know. She might be fine if she can move on and have a separate life, but they're probably not going to completely reconcile.
Okay, cool. We're going to do... Okay, so Bailey did respond and says, I think Geneva doesn't think about the relationship as a partnership, but as a necessity that she doesn't want. I don't think she ever really accepted it at all. That's a fair assessment. Okay, cool. Brack says if Nears could get a hold of someone to fix Geneva's back, then he would have fixed Perron's legs a while ago. If that ends up being the fixed IMA, be a Oh, two sentences. If that ends up being fixed, I'm gonna be a little upset. Brack, I know you have a mic. Don't make me go through your bad English language. I already typed terribly. Pandromine says Geneva doesn't have a symbiotic class because she has never had a truly symbiotic bond with a Selphid in the eyes of the system. And Bailey thumbs up and agreed to that. Kel says you
Correct.
could... Sorry, Ed?
Oh yeah, sorry. It's what I also said. I
Oh,
agree.
okay. Kel says you could maybe argue that it was the behavior of an addict, but that doesn't mean it's forgivable. Um, you want to expand on that a little bit, Kel?
I think a lot of Okasha's behavior when she was with Geneva the first time around was functionally like an addict because of how, and I think that's one of the reasons that the Selfids as a whole discourage the whole like taking a living host thing because it is so intense. It's like a drug. Being inside the living host where you have all the extra senses, you have the touch, you have the taste, like all of that stuff. Even Jalakwa talks about having a freshly dead body makes a world of difference. And then you ramp that up into a living body where you've got all those chemicals and hormones and endorphins and everything else that comes with the living body that you probably don't have with a dead body anymore. And that's just asking for trouble.
Okay. Liquid Ender. Perron getting fixed would mean the Frere folk are taking sides. Geneva getting fixed is them helping the last light beloved across Balaros. That's a good point. It might just be politics that kept Perron from being healed. Um, okay. Pandromine, in response to Liquid Ender, says Frere folk already support Forgotten Wing through Signum and other supplies / artifacts. But I'm gonna favor Liquid Ender here. And if you wanna clarify your statement and give a clearer state, if I'm being Liquid.
Yeah, the help that the Frere folk are giving to the Forgotten Ring right now, or at least prior to the whole Peclear M thing, was very limited. It was Signum, which only helps Niers himself, and just some minor stuff and enchantments. Beyond, it didn't really go beyond helping Niers as an individual fight, which wasn't too good.
I think it was a lot more than minor help because I'm sure they provided more powerful enchanted items. But I do agree it was very specifically put down in that they didn't get anything that would be like a huge amount of help. It was more knowledge and information and an exchange of enchanted goods than it was ever anything significant. Like, I don't know, Perron getting a full leg. I hope that it means that when Geneva gets to Talanquil when she's part of the UN again, and she's a relatively neutral person. They are willing to help her, but yeah, I'm with Liquid Enter on this. It might work out. Agent Fox says, or maybe Pirate just didn't think about it, and I'm gonna say it right now. Pirate, you didn't think of it. We see you. And Agent Fog is the one who suggested it. I didn't do it. Just make sure you ban them first. Pandramine says, also Jungle Tales chose sides for the Frere folk by trying to exterminate them and loot their stuff. Poliana also had a bunch of Frere made stuff in her battle with the Jungle Tales. But yeah, it's like equipment. Alright, we're going to move on from this particular roving topic because I believe we have... we've actually come to the end of our time for the recorded section. So we talked a lot about Niers, we talked a lot about Akasha, and the way we feel like the story is going for Geneva. Before we end, I want to take a second to talk about the best name for the Geneva Hive. So we have a couple of options here, but anyone can come up with anything. Post it. We got the Geneva Convention, A Suffering of Genevas, and what was the other one? Geneva Hive was the last one. Anyone got any other ideas?
Nurse Geneva. Nurse
Geneva, okay.
What? The Joy nurse. I mean, she's a doctor, but like, play on the Nurse Joys in Pokemon. I don't know. Come up with something pithy.
Got anything
Hello,
pretty? I'm not as funny as you guys. Mr. Europe says Gene VA therapy? How am I supposed to say that?
Any way you want. It only works written down.
Okay. So since no one's responding, we'll just vote. Nurse Joy 2.0, a Genevan Coven, The Last Light of Balaros. Asira, we're not going to do another question. We're going to do that after the recording. So, The Christmas Lights of Balaros. Yeah, I don't think we're going to top the Geneva Convention. It's just too good. Everyone, a Constellation of Geneva. Yo, that's a good one. Okay. Thank you for listening in. For those, if anybody else wants to say goodbye now. Please stick around. We'll keep talking. We will keep talking about the questions on the list, and we'll do some activities later. It'll be like an hour post.
Thanks for hosting, Oshi.
You're welcome. Okay. Bye, everybody.